The church bell tolls, signaling the start of a second life. A heavy gong resonates as a man and woman stand before the altar. The gray-haired groom promises a future of happiness to his bride. The brown-haired woman beams with joy behind her wedding veil. He pulls her close for a celebratory kiss at the altar. Their union is sealed with a tender kiss amidst falling petals. A single petal falls into water as time winds back 50 years. Chiyako arrives at a grand brick estate under a clear sky. Viscount Himura's daughter, Chiyako, prepares for her visit with a gift. She is summoned into the mansion to begin her formal duties. A sudden, quick thump sounds in her chest as the gray-haired man takes her hands. Lord Iori expresses his gratitude for the gift he specially requested for her. She reflects on the long history of service between her family and his. Chiyako recalls her childhood as a low-ranking noble beneath Iori's high status. She feels unworthy of even speaking to someone of his high standing. Iori insists that the old social boundaries no longer define their relationship. He holds her hands firmly and confesses his desire to marry her. Shocked by the proposal, she listens as he asks her to consider it seriously. Chiyako hesitates, her heart heavy with an unspoken response. Night falls over the traditional Japanese town, shifting the mood. A loud bang echoes as a fist slams against the desk in anger. Viscount Himura Kozo demands to know if she has successfully seduced Lord Iori. He calls her useless, threatening that her siblings will become homeless if she fails. Kozo orders her to marry wealth and extract every coin possible for the family. A sharp clatter sounds as Chiyako bows, submissively accepting her father's absolute command. She realizes marrying Iori would only let her greedy father exploit his family. The evening bustle begins at a brightly lit mansion where she seeks a solution. Lady Reika encourages Chiyako to enjoy the evening's festivities to the fullest. Marquise's daughter Kyogoku Reika asks if she feels nervous about the event. Chiyako notes her regular attendance at such high society gatherings. She acknowledges the urgent need to find a wealthy suitor tonight. Reika moves through the crowd with an air of effortless confidence. Chiyako prepares to follow orders and secure a second marriage quickly. She convinces herself that this sacrifice is necessary for her siblings' comfort. A man's voice calls out to her, catching her off guard. Baron Noda Kenichiro, vice president of a trading company, introduces himself. Kenichiro explains his recent absence due to business travels with his father. Reika suggests that the two of them would make a perfect match. Kenichiro expresses his honor at receiving approval from a woman of Reika's status. Chiyako points out the massive wealth disparity between her family and the Noda company. Kenichiro hides a sinister smirk as he glances toward the crowd. A sudden stir ripples through the room as a distinguished guest arrives. Chiyako notices the most popular young noble in attendance, causing quite a commotion. Iori politely requests that the adoring crowd of women give him space. He spots her across the room and offers a warm, knowing smile. Her breath hitches in surprise as their eyes finally meet. Iori approaches her directly, noting he came specifically because she was attending. Reika quickly steps in, claiming credit for inviting Chiyako to the party. Iori dismisses Reika's closeness, clarifying they were merely neighbors in the past. Reika notes that Iori remains cold to everyone except for Chiyako. Lord Iori watches Chiyako, thinking that he will protect her from other men, and that she deserves the right to choose her own future. Lady Reika laughs while telling Chiyako that being pursued by a man without genuine feelings is simply an annoying nuisance. Reika smirks with a challenge. A sudden heavy thud sounds as Reika loudly asks if the two of them have already become engaged. Reika stares in disbelief. Reika shouts for everyone's attention. announcing that Lord Kagami Iori and the Viscount's daughter are officially engaged. Iori turns to Rika with an angry blush, demanding that she stop making unauthorized announcements on his behalf. Ignoring his protest, Rika gleefully claps her hands and urges the entire crowd to offer the couple a round of applause. The sound of rhythmic clapping fills the room as a bewildered Chiyako and frustrated Iori stand before the guests. Rika wears a malicious grin, thinking to herself that no night could be more perfect than this one. Chiyako trembles in shock. Rika announces the engagement once more. Overwhelmed by the public pressure, Chiyako wonders how to proceed and deeply regrets not declining the proposal earlier. Iori calls out her name as they stand outside the mansion under the night sky. He softly asks if the proposal was truly such a heavy burden for her, but she quickly denies it. Her heart pounds with a quick thump as she finally admits that she was actually planning to turn him down. Iori asks why. Chiyako explains that her father is only interested in exploiting the Kagami family wealth, which would eventually cause Iori great trouble. Lord Iori offers a gentle smile, revealing that he and his father are fully aware of Viscount Himura's greedy intentions. He clarifies that while they will provide some financial support, he has no intention of being controlled by her father's demands. Iori asks her to cast aside her worries and marry him, causing Chiyako to tear up as she asks if it's truly okay. He warmly confirms his commitment. Chiyako weeps with relief and joy, reflecting on how she never imagined such happiness could ever find someone like her. Watching from a window, Baron Noda Kenichiro grits his teeth with a sharp sound, fuming that he failed to control the girl from the fallen family. A sudden soft tap startles Noda, causing him to cry out in surprise. Reika appears behind him with a cunning, knowing smile. Flustered, Noda tries to stammer out an excuse, claiming that he didn't have any improper intentions. Rika laughs, playfully asking him if he wasn't just looking for a bit of entertainment. Rika leans in close, whispering that there is still a way to separate the couple, while Noda privately curses her as an irritating brat. Noda resolves to tear them apart by smashing Chiyako into the depths of despair. Chiyako walks through the town. A woman in a purple dress and matching hat approaches Chiyako with a private message from Lord Iori. She informs Chiyako that Iori will be waiting for her at the Inari Shrine's main hall this evening to give her something in secret. Chiyako agrees to the meeting. A long, slow creak sounds as Chiyako pushes open the heavy doors of the darkened shrine. A quick thump echoes in her chest as she realizes Iori isn't there, mentioning that their appointment was supposed to be for tomorrow. Noda steps out of the deep shadows with an eerie, wide grin, leaving Chiyako frozen in disbelief. Trembling, she asks him if he has seen Lord Kagami. Chiyako's pulse quickens with a heavy thud as she explains she was told to meet Iori at this location. Noda lunges forward, and Chiyako screams his name in absolute terror. He smiles wickedly, ignoring her desperate pleas to stop as he closes in on her. A sharp tear sounds as he grabs her kimono. A piercing scream of despair rings out as everything goes wrong. Chiyako lies crumpled on the floor. She remains motionless in darkness. Chiyako stares up with wide eyes. Chiyako gasps as she spots Lord Iori and Lady Rika standing at the entrance. Iori calls her name in shock, while Reika remarks on how dreadful the scene appears. Rika cruelly asks if Chiyako felt like misbehaving before her wedding, leaving her struggling to find the words to defend herself. Reika points to an object on the floor, asking if it belongs to Lord Noda. Rika holds up a green gemstone cufflink and mockingly observes that Chiyako and Lord Noda seem to be a perfect match, leaving Chiyako stammering in shock. Placing a hand on Chiyako's shoulder, Reika mockingly advises her to be more discreet if she plans to continue her secret affairs. Reika wears a malicious grin as she warns Chiyako that her upcoming wedding could be canceled because of her behavior. Iori stands firm, declaring to the room that he has absolutely no intention of breaking off the engagement. Iori tries to comfort her, but a sudden, sharp pain sounds in her chest as Chiyako pulls away, begging him to stop touching her. Thorns of shame surround her as Chiyako weeps, believing she is no longer pure and pleading with him not to look at her anymore. A quick, soft twitch sounds as Chiyako trembles, while Reika smugly suggests they shouldn't shame a woman for such an indecent sight and tells Iori to stop. Reika instructs Iori to leave and head home for now, though he hesitates and looks back at Chiyako with concern. Chiyako decides she can no longer bear to look at Iori's face, and believes that leaving him is the only thing she has left to do. Looking away with a somber and disappointed expression, Iori tells Chiyako that they should talk another time. A heavy, slow creak sounds as Iori begins to walk away from the room. A sudden, sharp clatter sounds as Iori departs, while Reika stands victoriously over the sobbing Chiyako with a smug expression. A tight, firm squeeze sounds as Chiyako clenches her fists and addresses Lady Reika. A sharp, heavy thud sounds as Chiyako demands to know why Reika would betray her after pretending to be a kind friend. Chiyako lets out a piercing scream. Reika mocks Chiyako for pretending to be pure while seducing men, cruelly claiming she will never be happy. Reika continues her verbal assault, calling Chiyako a wicked girl for bewitching men with her innocent act. Reika erupts into a fit of cruel, mocking laughter while Chiyako lies broken and defeated on the floor. Chiyako weeps in despair, wondering why this tragedy is happening to her. Chiyako questions her undeserved fate. A sudden, sharp slap sounds as Chiyako is thrown to the ground by her father, who calls her a fool. Kozo yells that she has returned as damaged goods and is ashamed to her parents, while Chiyako offers a tearful apology for her failure. Chiyako blames herself for everything. A heavy, dull thud sounds as Chiyako realizes her mistake in trusting Reika and failing to escape the trap set for her. Kozo decides to marry her off to the Noda family instead, so they can take responsibility for the scandal. He notes that the Nodas are wealthy merchants and at the very least have money for the family to take. A sudden, sharp creak sounds as Kozo presses his foot onto Chiyako's head, ordering her to act submissive so they can sell her for financial support. Chiyako resolves to survive at any cost. The grand mansion stands silent. Marquise Kagami tells Iori that while Chiyako wasn't a bad person, their social standings are simply too far apart for a marriage. Iori's father admits he was against the marriage but gave consent because Iori insisted, though he now thinks this outcome is for the best. Iori tries to argue for his feelings, but his father cuts him off, telling him he has been selfish enough. Marquise Kagami's second wife, Mineko, reminds Iori that it was Chiyako herself who declined the proposal regardless of his feelings. Mineko excitedly announces they have received a better marriage proposal from the Kyogoku family for Lady Reika. Marquise Kagami orders Iori not to tarnish the family name any further and to accept his duty. Iori stares ahead with cold intensity as the arrangement with the Kyogoku family moves forward. Years pass as wedding photos show Chiyako married to Noda and Iori married to Reika. Chiyako reflects on how she was never a proper match for Iori's social standing anyway. A loud, sudden bang sounds as Noda throws Chiyako to the floor and orders her to be quiet. A sharp, heavy clatter sounds as Noda screams at Chiyako, calling her a useless, barren woman for not producing a child. Noda yells in fury that he is stuck with a dud. Chiyako bows submissively, offering a quiet, hollow apology for her perceived failure. Her eyes reflect deep exhaustion. A sharp, quick gasp sounds as Chiyako reads a newspaper headline about Lord Iori being seriously injured and losing his leg in battle.
Noda smirks as he tells Chiyako that Iori got on Rika's bad side and was intentionally sent to the front lines.
A loud, mocking laugh sounds as Noda says the arrogant prick deserves to rot in hell, while Chiyako wonders if this is all her fault. If only she hadn't been trapped. Chiyako stands before the gray-haired Noda and a pregnant woman in the present day. Noda happily announces that he has finally fathered a child with another woman after waiting so long. A light, joyful laugh sounds as the older Chiyako offers a hollow congratulations for the news. Bowing low, the older Chiyako listens as Noda mocks her for wasting his life as a useless woman, though he brags that he can finally be a father now. Standing beside the smiling Hatsu, Noda tells Chiyako that since she failed her duties as a wife, the main house now belongs to them and their child. A sudden, sharp creak sounds as Noda coldly orders her to live in the storehouse, telling her to be grateful he isn't throwing her onto the street. Outside the secluded white building, sunlight streams through a high window into a quiet room as a faint, distant tap sounds. Lying weak on the floor, the aged Chiyako lets out a series of heavy, labored breaths. Staring at the ceiling, she wonders if death is finally coming for her and decides that it is okay. As her life fades, she thinks of how she and Lord Iori could have had a different life. Chiyako clenches her chest as a sudden, sharp pinch sounds, wishing she could live just a little longer while the silhouette of Reika haunts her mind. With a final breath, Chiyako vows to never forgive Reika for ruining her life and curses her to death. Drifting away, she wishes to return to those happy days and see Lord Iori once again. A sudden, sharp gasp sounds as the young Chiyako wakes up, struggling to find her voice. Looking into the mirror, Chiyako touches her cheek in shock as she realizes she has become younger. She quickly checks the dates on the newspapers nearby, confirming they are from years ago. Staring with intense focus, she decides it doesn't matter how she returned, only that she is back. A vision of Lord Iori in his regal military uniform appears before her. Chiyako resolves that she will save him and herself with her own hands this time. A sudden, sharp creak sounds as Chiyako realizes she must meet with him immediately. Her father, Kozo, enters the room and mocks her for sleeping in late, commenting that she certainly has a fine life. Chiyako realizes that today is the day of the engagement announcement and the public applause that ruined her. Kozo warns her that if she cannot find a family to marry into tonight, he will send her to be her great-uncle's second wife. A low, grinding sound accompanies her realization that going to that social gathering was the moment her life was thrown off course. Chiyako remembers Reika's malicious grin as she held the green cufflink that destroyed her reputation. A sudden, sharp gasp sounds as Kozo reacts to Chiyako, declaring that she will not be attending the gathering. Kozo yells that he will marry her off instantly if she insists on being selfish, but Chiyako remains calm. A sudden, sharp snap sounds as Kozo clenches his fist in fury while Chiyako stares him down. Chiyako remains composed, thinking to herself that manipulating her father is a simple task. Kozo is startled by her unexpected words. Chiyako mentions that there is also the intent of Lord Iori's father, the Marquis, to consider. A sudden, sharp gulp sounds as Chiyako suggests she would rather persuade Iori sooner to advance the marriage talks. She points out how convenient it would be for her father if she married into the Kagami family, and he sheepishly agrees. A sudden, light tinkle sounds as Chiyako offers a soft, graceful smile. Walking through the town as a distant, low hum sounds, Chiyako is determined to meet Lord Iori and speak with him. A familiar voice calls out her name, catching her attention near the blooming red flowers. A sudden, heavy thud sounds as Chiyako stops in her tracks, her expression turning wary. She reflects on 50 years of resentment that she hasn't forgotten. Reika appears with a cheerful greeting, commenting on their perfect timing. Chiyako stares coldly as Reika explains she was on her way to pick her up.
Rika offers a bright smile, but Chiyako thinks to herself how the woman's kindness gives her chills.
Chiyako politely apologizes, while privately thinking she left the house specifically to avoid this encounter. A sharp, quick huff sounds as Reika becomes frustrated, thinking that without a foil like Chiyako, her own brilliance will be diminished. A soft, quick tap sounds as Reika places a hand on Chiyako's shoulder, remarking that there is no business important enough to turn down an invitation from House Kyogoku. Reika leans in and reminds Chiyako that as a Viscount's daughter, she has no reason to treat a Kyogoku carelessly. A sudden low rush sounds as Reika looms over Chiyako, questioning if that is the case while people watch from the street. Chiyako realizes Reika is as malicious as ever as the crowd recognizes the famous Lady Kyogoku. A low, hushed whisper sounds as Reika wears a smug grin while onlookers gossip about how rude she is being. A quiet, sharp whisper sounds as Reika leans close to Chiyako's ear, saying this behavior isn't like her. Chiyako resolves to wait, deciding she no longer cares if House Himura's reputation suffers. She thinks to herself that there must be a move she can make once they arrive at the gathering. Chiyako offers a soft smile and tells Reika that she understands. Arriving at the grand ballroom, Reika calls out to Chiyako in front of the other guests. Chiyako senses the arrival of the person she was expecting. The silver-haired man greets Chiyako, who remembers him as the one who oppressed her for 50 years.
A group of merchants is recognized for their achievements and granted titles.
Chiyako realizes the man only wants to marry into a noble family to improve his own status. Recalling their long history, Chiyako thinks about how easily she was manipulated by him in the past. A soft, quick smile appears as Chiyako prepares to strike back at what he hates most. Chiyako coldly tells the man to stop speaking to her so familiarly, catching him off guard.
She claims her father told her not to associate with people of his merchant background.
The man is left speechless by her sudden hostility. Infuriated, the man accuses Chiyako of being arrogant because he was acting humble toward her. A sudden, sharp swipe sounds as he reaches toward her while she glares back. Chiyako hopes he makes a public scene to destroy his own reputation. A sudden, sharp gasp sounds as someone intervenes. A sudden, heavy thud sounds as Lord Iori grabs the man's wrist, shielding Chiyako. Chiyako looks at the back of her beloved, the person she has always dreamed of. Standing tall, Iori remains positioned between Chiyako and her harasser. A sudden, sharp snap sounds as Iori warns the man to never touch Chiyako again, while Noda recoils in fear. A sharp, quick whoosh sounds as Iori tosses the man's hand aside in disgust. Nearby ladies praise Lord Iori's intensity while mocking the lowly status of the merchant's son. A light, mocking titter sounds as the man flees, his poor upbringing exposed to the crowd. Lord Iori turns to Chiyako and speaks her name gently. Overwhelmed with emotion, Chiyako responds to him. They share a quiet, meaningful look in the middle of the ballroom. Chiyako is moved by the fact that he protected her this time. Lord Iori offers a small, kind smile. Reika watches them from the side, commenting on their public display of affection. A sharp, quick huff sounds as Reika mocks them for their dreamy staring, while Noda is seen fuming in the background. Reika continues to observe with a calculating, smug expression. Chiyako worries that their gathering here is an inescapable fate. Reika notes that Iori acted as if Chiyako belonged solely to him. A sudden, sharp gasp sounds as Chiyako reacts to Reika's words. A vision of Reika's cruelty flashes as Chiyako clenches her hand. Iori and Chiyako exchange words as the tension rises.
They look at one another while the atmosphere remains heavy.
Reika is confused by the situation. Chiyako claims she has an important message from her father for the Marquis. Lord Iori suggests they excuse themselves to discuss the matter elsewhere. A sudden, sharp clatter sounds as Iori dismisses Rika's interference as pointless nonsense. Once alone outside, Chiyako apologizes for lying about the message to escape the gathering. A sudden light tinkle sounds as Iori tells her that he understands. He admits he was planning to tell a similar lie to leave that place as well. Chiyako ponders her next move in this new timeline. She realizes that no one would believe she has returned from the future. Warning Iori about Rika now would likely be meaningless. Chiyako considers if she should simply accept his marriage proposal immediately.
She notes that Reika and Noda are still lurking in the adjacent building. A sudden, sharp gasp sounds as Iori calls to her.
He asks if she would like to go somewhere alone together.
Chiyako gives him a happy, affirmative answer. A distant, low hum sounds as they walk away, leaving a frustrated Reika behind in the courtyard.
Smiling maliciously, Reika asks if they are leaving so soon without even offering a greeting.
Reika continues to mock them, asking if they don't find their behavior terribly rude. Iori stops and coldly informs Reika that he has absolutely no obligation to greet her.
Reika feigns shock, accusing them of sneaking around together to hide a secret from others. Wearing a smug grin, Reika asks if they are already engaged, while Chiyako looks on nervously.
A sudden, sharp snap sounds as Reika threatens to inform the Grand Hall, but Chiyako firmly shuts her down.
Chiyako leans into Iori, denying the engagement while asking Reika why she is in such a frantic hurry. Smiling gracefully, Chiyako points out that prying into other families' affairs is beneath someone so admired. Chiyako notes that such behavior is quite unlike the Lady Reika everyone loves. Chiyako continues to twist Reika's reputation against her, while Reika reflects on being caught off guard earlier. A sudden, sharp snap sounds as Reika indignantly denies that she is prying. Reika claims she was only showing concern, but Iori asks if her current behavior is really appropriate. Reika is left bewildered by his question. Iori warns her that she is losing her composure in front of the other young ladies watching them. A sudden light tinkle sounds as Reika puts on a fake smile for onlookers while the couple walks away. Reika desperately calls out for them to wait as they leave her behind.
Iori and Chiyako walk through the night air as flower petals drift around them.
Alone and trembling with rage, Reika fumes over being played by someone she considers a mere lackey. Noda watches from the shadows, his expression dark as he is addressed. Noda turns away from the window, his eyes cold and calculating. Rika mocks Chiyako for daring to call the heir of the Noda Trading Company a mere merchant. Reika wears a wicked grin as she suggests they teach Chiyako a lesson she won't ever forget. Looking up at the starry sky, Chiyako marvels at how lovely the view is. Chiyako admits she never knew such a place existed, and Iori quietly agrees.
Iori calls out her name, and Chiyako turns to look at him with a soft expression. Iori mentions that she claimed earlier there was no truth to the rumors of an engagement.
A vision of Chiyako's earlier denial flashes through the air. Chiyako looks down, apologizing and explaining it was a lie meant to avoid a complicated situation.
Iori acknowledges it was the right move at the time, but he pauses with a serious look.
Looking directly into her eyes, Iori asks if she will truly marry him.
A sudden, sharp thump sounds as Iori takes her hands, declaring she is the only one he has ever loved. Iori promises to make her happy with his own hands and ensure she never suffers again. He tells her not to worry about her father's reaction or interference. Iori reveals he is well aware of Viscount Himura's selfish motives for supporting their family. Iori asks her once more to marry him without any lingering worries. Chiyako reflects that by marrying him, she can prevent him from ever being sent to the battlefield. Smiling with tears in her eyes, Chiyako tells him that she humbly accepts his proposal. Iori is momentarily stunned, his face flushing with relief and joy. Chiyako gazes up at him, her cheeks bright red with happiness. A sudden heavy thud sounds as they embrace tightly, and Chiyako whispers his name in her heart. Iori thanks her tenderly as a warm, golden light surrounds them. Iori pulls her close and asks her to stay by his side for the rest of his life. They hold each other in the quiet of the night, finally united. At the Grand Kagami estate, a voice acknowledges the news of the engagement. The Marquis and his wife discuss Iori choosing a low-ranking wife, though the Marquis defends the choice. Iori stands firm, his resolve to marry Chiyako unshakable. An early morning newspaper officially announces the engagement between Lord Iori and Chiyako. A sudden, low grinding sounds as Reika crushes the paper, cursing lowly paupers and swearing to act fast. Reika and Noda stand together in the mansion, plotting their next move against the couple. Rika asks Noda if they should teach Chiyako a lesson she won't ever forget. Noda vows to ruin Chiyako's life so completely that she will never be able to talk back to him again. A sudden, sharp rip sounds as Reika tears the newspaper, thinking that Noda might actually be useful. Vowing to ruin the marriage immediately, Reika shreds the announcement into tiny pieces. Chiyako hangs laundry at her family's humble home while reminiscing about her past. A sudden, sharp rip sounds as the announcement of the marriage is destroyed. Reika declares that Chiyako will regret ever defying her as she continues to shred the paper. Screaming Chiyako's name in a fit of rage, Reika stares at the torn image of the couple. Chiyako's younger sister, Koharu, approaches her in the courtyard while she works. Excited about the news, Koharu notes how amazing it is to see Chiyako's name featured in the newspaper. Chiyako remains skeptical, wondering if their situation is truly as safe as it seems. A horrifying vision of Noda's past aggression flashes through Chiyako's mind, making her realize she must keep her guard up. Holding her wooden bucket, Chiyako worries if Noda has truly given up his pursuit of her. Chiyako reflects on how the four of them were fated to face each other at the gathering, regardless of her efforts. Koharu tells Chiyako to snap out of her daydream and focus on her chores. A sudden, loud call sounds from the front of the house as a visitor arrives. Chiyako is startled by the unexpected guest, recognizing the visitor's voice immediately. Chiyako welcomes Lord Iori to her home, blushing at his sudden appearance. Iori greets Chiyako warmly as the morning sun shines behind him in the doorway. Chiyako's father greets Lord Iori and asks what brings him to their home so early. Iori apologizes for the early hour, but states he has an important proposal regarding their future. Iori requests to take Chiyako into the Kagami household immediately to prepare for their life together. Chiyako's father is left speechless by the request while the younger siblings peek through the door. Iori explains that he wants Chiyako to become accustomed to the Kagami family's troublesome customs as soon as possible. Iori offers to send one of his own maids to assist Chiyako's family in exchange for taking her away. Iori asks Chiyako directly for her thoughts on his sudden plan. With a kind and gentle gaze, Iori asks Chiyako if she would come and stay with him. The two stand close together as Iori awaits her answer in the quiet courtyard. Chiyako hesitates for a moment, looking away as she considers the implications of moving into his house. Koharu enthusiastically tells her sister that she should go and not worry about the family's welfare. Koharu reassures her that they will manage somehow once the marriage is officially finalized. A sudden, quick squeeze sounds as Chiyako grips her hands tightly in her lap while making her decision. Bowing deeply, Chiyako accepts the invitation and places herself in Lord Iori's care.
Iori smiles warmly and says he is counting on her as well.
The scene shifts to the grand and imposing architecture of the Kagami family estate. Iori introduces Chiyako to his parents, and she greets them with a deep, respectful bow. Marquise Kagami welcomes Chiyako warmly, telling her to treat the mansion as her own home and relax. Madame Miniko complains about the potential gossip and warns Chiyako that she is strictly a maid in training for now. A sudden, sharp rattle sounds as Iori reacts angrily to his stepmother's coldness while Chiyako tries to soothe him. Chiyako gracefully thanks them for the opportunity and promises to devote herself to the household as a maid. Madame Mineko tells Chiyako that she had better do her best to prove her worth to the family. Iori turns to introduce Chiyako to his two stepbrothers who are seated nearby. The middle brother, Kagami Matsuya, is introduced to Chiyako with a stern expression. The youngest brother, Kagami Takahisa, watches Chiyako quietly from his seat at the table. Chiyako politely greets the brothers and expresses her hope that they will be kind to her during her stay. Chiyako observes that Madame Mineko takes immense pride in her status as part of the Marquis' household. Chiyako reflects on how the woman looks down on her for being the descendant of a lowly retainer. She realizes that Mineko likely feels the same way about Iori since he is the child of the former wife. Looking at the massive library shelves, Chiyako reflects on the cold atmosphere despite the Marquis's kindness. Iori tells Chiyako that she should relax and not trouble herself with any menial work. Chiyako insists she came to the estate to work and learn the household's customs. A sudden light tinkle sounds as Lord Iori tells her not to say such lonely things. Lord Iori declares that his true intention is to live together with Chiyako. Chiyako is overwhelmed by how suddenly everything is happening and admits she hasn't thought it through. A sudden, heavy thump sounds as she realizes they are truly living under the same roof. Lord Iori gazes down at her with a tender and serious expression. Chiyako's cheeks flush a deep red as she looks back at him. Overcome with shyness, Chiyako hides her blushing face with her hands. When Lord Iori calls her name, she answers him with a startled and happy response. Iori explains that they will live together in a separate house after the wedding and asks her to stay here until then. Chiyako looks at him with a curious expression, repeating his request to bear with the current situation. Chiyako smiles sweetly, deciding to endure the stay for the sake of Lord Iori. Lord Iori leans in close, noting that she has absolutely no greed within her. He confesses that he wants to live happily with her in a place where no one can interfere. Chiyako smiles brightly, telling him she will wait eagerly for the day they move into their own home. Chiyako sits alone in her new quarters, reflecting on her situation as she watches the morning light. Now dressed in a maid's kimono, Chiyako bows deeply and humbly asks the head maid for guidance. The head maid welcomes her to the kitchen, apologizing for the trouble she must go through as a trainee. A dark aura surrounds the head maid as she secretly plots to follow the madam's orders. A sudden, sharp chop sounds as the head maid vows to bully Chiyako until she is driven out. The head maid is left sweating and surprised as Chiyako begins her chores with focused determination. Chiyako assists the other maids in the kitchen, handling the heavy equipment with ease. The head maid realizes Chiyako is far too efficient to harass and finds nothing to complain about. Fearing the madam's wrath for her failure, the head maid watches Chiyako prepare a tray. Chiyako stands outside Lord Iori's room, politely asking if he is awake. A sudden quick click sounds as Chiyako opens the door and announces that breakfast is ready. Chiyako looks up, her eyes widening slightly as she sees Lord Iori standing before her. Lord Iori smiles warmly and greets Chiyako with a gentle good morning. A sudden low thump sounds as Iori pats her head, telling her she didn't need to wake so early. Lord Iori looks at her with an affectionate and soft gaze. The head maid leads Chiyako through the mansion, explaining the morning cleaning routine for the halls and rooms.
The head maid stops her explanation to deliver a specific and serious warning.
She points to a heavily locked door, explaining it houses the master's antiques and is strictly off-limits. The head maid gives a final stern warning never to touch anything inside that room. Chiyako acknowledges the order with a polite and respectful nod. The head maid reflects on how much she dislikes Chiyako's composure before relaying a message from Lord Iori.
A flashback reveals Iori ordering the head maid not to overwork Chiyako and to never take her eyes off her.
The head maid tells Chiyako not to overdo her chores and assigns her to work with another maid. Chiyako meets her new partner, though she senses the girl has been trying to tell her something. A sudden, soft sweep sounds as Chiyako reflects on how the staff is being overprotective of Lord Iori. The grand gates of the Kagami estate stand tall against the clear morning sky.
Fuming in frustration, Noda curses that Chiyako has taken refuge, and his plan with Reika has stalled.
The scene shifts to the imposing exterior of the mansion as someone expresses surprise. Reika looks absolutely furious as she screams into a gold telephone receiver. On the other end, Noda reports that Chiyako won't leave the house despite his spies watching closely. Noda complains that even when she does go out, Chiyako is always glued to Lord Iori's side. Noda's expression darkens as he remembers that Chiyako was someone he had claimed for himself long ago.
He recalls how Chiyako was the only person among the arrogant aristocrats who treated him with genuine respect.
A memory flashes of Chiyako being kind to him, contrasting with her father's warning to avoid mere merchants. A sudden, sharp slam sounds as Noda screams, wondering if Lord Iori has been poisoning Chiyako's mind. A sudden, low rattle sounds as Noda listens to Rika's fury over the phone, promising to revise the plan if given more time. A sudden, sharp click sounds as a hand slams the telephone receiver onto its cradle. Lady Minako stares at the phone with a cold expression, resolving to drive Chiyako out of the Kagami household. With a malicious glint in her purple eyes, Lady Minako decides it is time to have a certain person make a move. The grand facade of the Kagami estate stands tall as someone is thanked for visiting. Seated in a lavish room, Lady Minako suggests sharing tea to discuss the difficulties of Lord Iori's engagement.
Reika admits it is an honor to be invited, while Lady Minako complains that Iori is clinging to a girl with no redeeming qualities.
Lady Minako insists it would have been better if Iori had fallen for a beautiful and intelligent lady like Reika. Reika notes that her own parents have long wished for her and Lord Iori to be married. The air grows heavy as Reika speaks of her long-held hope for the marriage.
Reika reiterates that her parents had long hoped she would become Lord Iori's wife.
Reika explains that her parents were terribly disappointed by the engagement announcement, leaving Lady Minako to feign surprise.
Looking downcast, Reika expresses regret for not approaching the Kagami family with a marriage proposal sooner. A sudden, soft clink sounds as Lady Minako considers that it might not be too late for a proposal from a marquise's family. Reika sits gracefully by her tea, her expression now calm and unreadable. Lady Minako compliments Reika on her lovely face, while a dark intent lurks behind the smile. Reika smiles deviously, her eyes narrowing as she contemplates her next move. Lady Minako silently urges Reika to work hard for her sake. The afternoon sun shines over the grand pillars of the Kagami mansion. Chiyako diligently scrubs the hallway floor while another maid carries a wooden bucket past her.
The maid offers to replace the water, while a dark thought arises about getting Chiyako out of the way.
Chiyako continues her chores, unaware of the lurking presence behind her.
Lady Miniko calls out to Chiyako, stopping her in the middle of her work. Lady Miniko smiles thinly, noting that Chiyako is working very hard.
Chiyako politely explains that she wants the family to be comfortable, earning a condescending remark about her admirable attitude.
Lady Miniko claims she feels awful making her work, but frames it as necessary endurance to fit into the household. A sudden soft gasp sounds as Chiyako agrees before being startled by Lady Mineko's movement. Lady Mineko points out that Chiyako's obi looks like it is coming loose.
Chiyako is surprised and begins to apologize for her appearance.
Lady Miniko tells Chiyako to stay still and offers to tighten the sash herself with a predatory smile.
A sudden, quick tug sounds as Lady Mineko finishes tightening the obi.
Lady Miniko tells Chiyako she is counting on her with the household matters.
Chiyako bows respectfully as Lady Mineko watches her with a sinister smirk.
The quiet hallway of the mansion stands empty as the tension lingers.
A sudden, heavy thud sounds as Chiyako wonders why the other maid hasn't returned with the water. Startled by the noise, Chiyako stops in her tracks and looks toward the source.
A sudden, light patter sounds as Chiyako wonders what that noise could be. Chiyako recalls the head maid's warning that the master's hobby room is strictly off-limits.
Chiyako is shocked to find the door to the forbidden room open and the lock lying on the floor.
A sudden, sharp thump sounds as Chiyako tries to process why the door is unlocked.
Several maids rush toward Chiyako, calling out for the young madam.
Lady Miniko demands to know why her husband's door is open, while Chiyako insists she has only just arrived.
A sudden, quick shove sounds as a maid pushes past Chiyako to inspect the room.
The maids find the room in disarray, and Lady Miniko lets out a cry of shock. A shattered vase lies in pieces on the floor, its value clearly lost. Lady Miniko turns her fury on Chiyako, accusing her of lying about her involvement.
Chiyako maintains her innocence despite the overwhelming accusation of dishonesty.
Lady Miniko claims she saw Chiyako at the door earlier, framing her for the incident.
Chiyako tries to explain the misunderstanding, but Lady Mineko accuses her of stealing the key under the guise of cleaning.
Lady Minoko sneers that Chiyako intended to sell the antiques, insulting her for being the daughter of a fallen viscount. Lady Miniko leans in close to Chiyako, expressing suspicion about the state of her sash. Looking over her shoulder with a smirk, Lady Mineko thinks to herself that Chiyako won't be able to escape once the key is discovered. Lady Miniko's eyes widen in absolute shock as her expression turns pale and frantic. Chiyako searches the folds of her clothing and realizes with surprise that the item she expected to find is missing. Chiyako smiles calmly as she addresses her mother-in-law.
Chiyako asks Lady Mineko what she has been talking about this whole time.
While the other maids look on, Chiyako firmly states that she has never entered the room and does not even know what the key looks like.
Lady Miniko looks flustered and confused, wondering how her plan has gone awry. Chiyako politely thanks Lady Mineko for tightening her sash earlier in the day. Lady Miniko stares at Chiyako in a state of suppressed fury, realizing the girl has seen through her scheme. Lady Miniko's anger boils over as she stares at Chiyako's serene and smiling face. A memory flashes back to Lady Miniko offering to retie Chiyako's dress, making her realize that Chiyako was aware of her actions from the start. Lady Miniko clenches her fist, realizing she had completely underestimated how sharp and intelligent Chiyako truly is.
Chiyako innocently asks if something is wrong, while Lady Mineko tries to stammer out a response.
Chiyako smiles and says she is perfectly happy for the incident to be reported to her husband once he returns.
Iori and his father sit at a table looking at the shattered vase pieces, while the master notes that the key was found right next to Lady Mineko's seat.
Lady Minoko shouts in protest, claiming that Chiyako must have deliberately planted the key there to frame her.
Iori points out the flaws in the accusation, noting that Chiyako is a newcomer who couldn't have known the storage location or stolen the key unnoticed.
The room stands silent as Iori explains that the logistics of the supposed theft make very little sense.
Iori asks Lady Mineko directly if she actually saw Chiyako in the act of stealing the key.
Fuming with rage, Lady Mineko accuses Iori of being blinded by infatuation for a girl she considers vulgar and poor.
Iori's gaze turns cold and sharp as he warns her that he will have his own response if she continues with that attitude.
A sudden, quick rattle sounds as Chiyako enters the room and announces that she has brought tea for everyone.
As Chiyako serves the tea, Lady Mineko fakes a pleasant demeanor and thanks her for being so thoughtful.
Iori tells Chiyako that she didn't need to continue working, but she mentions that there is something she wants to discuss with the master.
Chiyako bows respectfully toward the master as she prepares to offer a suggestion.
Chiyako suggests repairing the broken vase using the kintsugi method and mentions a skilled craftsman in a nearby town.
The master is visibly impressed by Chiyako's refinement and her knowledge of traditional restoration techniques.
The master asks Chiyako to tell him more about the artisan later, and she happily agrees.
A memory shows Chiyako's father hosting various craftsmen in their home, explaining where she gained her knowledge of such arts.
Lady Mineko watches the scene with a dark aura, frustrated that her attempt to ruin Chiyako only served to increase the girl's standing in the house.
Lady Mineko's expression turns sinister as she realizes she must act quickly before her plan to send Iori away fails.
Chiyako walks through the grand hallway as someone calls out an apology to her.
Iori stands close to Chiyako in the quiet hall, expressing his regret for the needless hardships she has been forced to endure.
Chiyako looks up at him with a tender and happy smile, repeating his words about hardship.
Chiyako confesses that simply being by his side is more than enough to make her happy.
Iori smiles warmly at her, though he insists that he wants to provide her with a better life. Iori leans in and tells Chiyako that his true wish is for the two of them to live alone together. A beautiful white house stands in a scenic location, representing the future home Iori envisions for them.
Chiyako's face lights up with joy as Iori expresses his desire to see her smile every single day.
Iori looks deeply into Chiyako's eyes as he confesses the depth of his feelings for her.
Chiyako blushes and tells him that she will be eagerly awaiting the day they can move into their own home.
Iori smiles with confidence and tells her to leave all the arrangements to him.
A heavy tension lingers in the air as the focus shifts to the urgent need to finalize the wedding preparations.
Iori and Chiyako stand in the hallway outside a closed door.
Chiyako realizes with a start that she forgot to clean up the tea service in the other room. A sudden, quick rattle sounds as Chiyako reaches for the door handle, while a voice inside screams in opposition to the marriage. Chiyako pauses at the door, her expression turning serious as she hears the argument unfolding inside.
From inside the room, Lady Mineko demands that Iori marry Lady Reika instead, while the master sternly tells her to stop talking nonsense and go rest.
A sudden, sharp rattle sounds as Lady Mineko recoils in shock and fear after being reprimanded.
The gray-haired master shouts that Iori's engagement is already public knowledge and it is impossible to break it off now.
Looking down with disappointment, the master questions why Lady Mineko doesn't understand the gravity of their family's standing. Chiyako stands outside the door, realizing that Lady Maniko is working against her alongside Lady Reika. She concludes that the two women must be conspiring together in secret.
Chiyako diligently hangs laundry to dry. She is startled by a voice.
Lady Reika arrives in a purple dress, scoffing at Chiyako for summoning her with only a letter.
Reika suggests Chiyako has become arrogant, while Chiyako bows and apologizes for being so busy.
A sudden, sharp snap sounds as Reika closes her fan and mocks Chiyako for looking like a common maid.
Chiyako politely explains that she has an important letter from her husband meant for Reika's father.
A sudden, quick snap sounds as Rika's face flushes with joy, believing the letter is an approval for her to marry Iori.